or skills? What is that?
Absolutely. It is not talked about, and by no means is it a popular term. Actually, I was actually doing more research on it, even just preparing for this particular podcast. So, my background is in education. I've been brought up with entrepreneur parents who've worked in education. And the biggest gap between the real world is turning this knowledge into real skills and capabilities. And I think now that I'm working with lots of different companies, the common theme that I'm seeing is there is no North Star metric to know whether or not your team is has the adequate skills to be able to do and excel at what they're good at. So let's take an example of our company. I want to, for the longest time, and I still haven't solved it, I wanted to make sure, like, how can I gauge whether or not my engineers are actually good engineers? Or how can I gauge if my salespeople actually know what they're doing? And so there was no real way, because engineering is, yes, okay, you can write code and issue tickets, but it's not so black and white. Sales is even more nuanced, I would say, because yes, okay, you can check how many calls they do, you can check their pipeline, but there is no objective measure to know whether a salesperson has the adequate skills to perform well. So the sales skills quotient is a measure or a framework, an approach to try to quantify the level of skills in an organization and distill it down to one number. Just like in customer service, we have NPS or we have CSAT. I'm trying to, well, no, not even just me, this is based on the work of other folks, trying to really figure out what is that North Star metric that will allow a CEO or an organization to really figure out, do they have the right people for the right jobs, and do those people have the right skills? And so the skills quotient is trying to measure that. And so it can be something as simple as, okay, you are a salesperson. These are the 5 capabilities or competencies you need to know as a salesperson. This is how you rank on each skill. Therefore, your skills quotient is 70 out of 100 or whatever the number is. So it's an attempt to distill and simplify something that's actually very complex into a number that everybody can kind of benchmark.
And you have a co-founder, correct?
I do, yes.
So if you listen or watch or read like the startup stuff, it says one of the top reasons startups fail is the co-founder conflict. Mm-hmm. Can you just tell us, like how you and your co-founder found each other and how this relationship is working out so far?
Sure. So my co-founder's name is Edgar. He's actually from the US as well. And originally when we met, was actually I was between, my family had just exited their previous business, which I had been a part of. And I was looking to start a new business in the tutoring space. And essentially, I was looking for somebody with experience in education, building curriculum, skills that I did not possess. So I was looking for somebody with complementary skill sets. And essentially, I met Edgar, who's my co-founder, at a coding school initially. And I liked his background because he had worked for other education companies. He had worked for this coding school. And so I reached out to him saying like, hey, can you help me do 2 to 3 months of market research on this new business idea that I'm considering? I'll pay you for the time. And then, we did the research. We figured out that it was probably a viable business. And then I was like, hey, do you want to be a co-founder on this business? And it kind of just started off in that way.
And can you talk some about another thing they say, like never do 50-50 equity split, Sure. Can you talk about how you and your co-founder Edgar decided the right equity split for y'all?
Great question. So I 100% agree that equity split should never be equal. I think like many things in life, many relationships, nothing is ever split equally anyways. So I think what we did well with my co-founder Edgar was that we really separated our roles out very clearly. So Edgar's expertise was more on the academics, the curriculum. He's a much better recruiter than I am. He's much better at operations, versus I was more on the sales, on the operations, on the finance side, and the customer service side. So we really split our roles accordingly. And then what we did was Edgar did not really need to invest much in terms of funding into the business. So we said, okay, we will take some of the financing risk on our end, and therefore, this is how we're going to split the equity accordingly.
Next, can you discuss I might be making this up, but how do you decide the next country you're going to go into? What's the thought process of that?
To be frank, It's not very clearly defined. We usually just follow the opportunities. So, there's this term called product market fit. And usually one of the ways to know if you have good product market fit is that essentially the market is pulling you. So we have a sales team today. They do their typical outbound sequence and motions where they message people, they call people, they send emails, etc. And we've identified that actually a lot of the interest in the services and products that we offer come from outside Vietnam. And more specifically, they come from markets that tend to be more mature in the SaaS domain. So it's places like Europe, it's places like Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, actually not so much. Propensity to spend on software in Southeast Asia is still quite low. So really, it's wherever we get prospects and leads at this stage. I think moving forward in the future, we're going to set in place a more, I think, disciplined kind of approach, which really is more looking at the propensity to spend on learning management systems or training tools, see where there are gaps in that market where we think we can add value, and just taking a bit of a more traditional approach in that regard. But today we don't do that, to be frank.
And so you're considered like, I guess, an ed tech company?
Yeah. So
what is that? What is ed tech?
We're in a weird space where we do training for education companies. Like we provide our learning management system to company. Okay, so let's start maybe with your question. Let's start with big picture. So what is ed tech? For me, ed tech is anything that utilizes technology to facilitate or improve the delivery of learning in all its forms. These days, I think we are a lot less ed tech and much more corporate training tech, or L&D in a way, I would say. And specifically within this segment, we focus more on sales training and customer service training.